I wish I felt more supported.
More understood?
More understood by teachers, more understood by my parents. When that diagnosis came in, after going through the motions of grief and, all of that, I feel so good about where I am right now.
If we look at traditional perspectives of a glass ceiling, bang, you've gone through that. Let's put another glass ceiling in the way for somebody who's not understood because of neurodiversity. Smash that one.
It's managing the voices in your head a lot of the time. It's something I've had to learn to do, and that's probably part of my grief bit, is I've stopped myself from doing things or not wanted to do something because I am worried about other people will think, and it's cost me an opportunity. That's the power and the value of sharing this. You've decided that I'm not going to compromise myself.
No.
And now you're flourishing.
You've either got harder challenges, a great opportunity, depending what optics we want to put on it. Have you found any particular barriers?
So I'm going to tell you this. Someone in my family immediately responded to my story when I posted the story and said, you shouldn't be talking about ADHD. You shouldn't be talking about it because you don't want to be labelled as someone who has a problem.
Nick, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
Pleasure.
Yeah, exciting. I've got to ask you, an advocate for ADHD, a woman of colour, why did you become such an advocate for ADHD?
I mean, I've only been diagnosed for about less than a year. So, this side of a few years ago, it wasn't even a thing. But in the year that I was getting my assessment to be diagnosed, I felt a lot of, I shouldn't really say this, but this is how I felt. I felt ashamed about it. I felt as though there was something wrong with me, and there was I was a bit defected a bit. And that feeling, I think it's almost like, I hate to be melodramatic, but it felt a bit like grief, I'd known a version of myself, in my childhood, in my adulthood, as a young adult. And when I got the diagnosis, it really just shifted who I thought I was, and it made things kind of make sense, but almost like grieving what you didn't understand about yourself and all of those things, if I have to say. So I guess when all those feelings came up, I started journaling quite a lot because I went to therapy, and my therapist was saying, journaling was a great way to process everything. And then I, started feeling this light in me that actually, how many women would there be in their 30s now getting diagnosed, getting a deeper understanding of themselves? And maybe there's something I can do with the platform that I have from the show that I went on.
So you felt like you had a purpose behind the platform you've been given?
Yeah, and it was kind of like, well, with this diagnosis, maybe all of this is there for a reason, there must be a reason. And I didn't want to have this platform and not use it for something that is potentially for good.
Let's talk about that then for a second.
Yeah.
Love is Blind.
Yeah.
If I'm right, your diagnosis came after that.
Yeah.
So let's go before that then. You're a professional woman.
Yeah.
You've got a big job. Yeah. What made you go on the TV program?
You know what? So I was married before. This is my second marriage. I was married before, and when that didn't work out, I felt so disappointed with myself. And then I, took about 2 years where I focused on myself, my healing, and just, the betterment. And when the opportunity came around for the show, a friend of mine and we decided to apply together. Mm-hmm. And when we did the application, they came back to me, and I just thought, you know what, let's just go for it, I mean, I was a bit skeptical because ultimately I have been married before. But I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. I went the traditional route. I grew up in a very traditional family. I was raised Catholic. And, when that didn't work out the traditional way, I just thought, why not? Why not?
I love that.
Yeah.
Put yourself out of your comfort zone as well.
Yeah. Put myself out of my comfort zone. You've got nothing to lose, and you never know what will happen.
No.
Yeah.
But back to that year before you ultimately got diagnosed, what was that journey what happened and who or what influenced you to actually then think about ADHD and look to get diagnosed?
So it was on the show I met my partner Benaya, and in that process we got to live together. And obviously, you know, when you're in the pod, you haven't watched the show before, but in the pods you don't see the person, you're just speaking about yourself, and then you get engaged, and when you get engaged you then live with the partner. So I ended up living with my partner Benaya before we got married, and he would see me being very scatty, late, like consistently late for everything, losing things every time. Like, it was really, you know, crippling at times. Sometimes my anxiety would be through the roof. I don't know if you've watched the show at all.
Not personally.
But
I don't get to watch any TV.
well, in that, basically, there was a decision to make between Benaya and another person. And that decision between the two men, it was so crippling. Like, I cannot even explain to you, like, it was just the decision just, I kept asking producers behind the scene, look, is this guy a good guy? You know, because I just couldn't decide. And I've now know in retrospect that that's a symptom of ADHD, when you just get so overwhelmed that you can't really, like...
To be fair, that is a bit of
a
pressure can.
It is a pressure can too, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I got so overwhelmed. And, you know, that, I guess, yeah, was also hard. But anyway, you know, all these symptoms. And he said to me, do you know what? Do you think you might have ADHD? And I thought, no, I got very defensive. I was like, no. And, but lo and behold, when we did get married, you know, he did feel like it would be a good thing for me to understand myself a bit more so that we can manage what it is together, because he wanted to be supportive to me. So I went and I did the assessment and I got a diagnosis. It took about 9 months to get the diagnosis. Yeah.
Can I take you back then?
Yeah.
So we are definitely going to come up to date.
Mm.
If we journey back for a moment, pre all of that, teenage years, school, where was that? Where were you? Where were you a teenager?
I was a teenager in Surrey.
In Surrey.
Yeah.
So you're growing up in Surrey, and at that stage, very clearly, you'll have had ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
What did that bring into your life now when you look back at it with a different optics than you perhaps lived it through?
Mm.
What was it like then?
So I was frequently told off, you know, like, and I think, you know, when you're raised in a way that you're meant to go to uni and that's the path, you know, that's paved for you with all these expectations.
Conforming.
Yeah, you feel like you have to conform, and there's a level of pressure. My dad had an accident when we were younger, and that meant that I had to support the household a bit more, and I guess that made me feel like I had to do really well in terms of like pressure. But I really struggled with concentration at times, and sorry.
Oh, take a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. How old were you then?
So, well, there were two acts. He had one when I was in uni, first year of university, and then when I was 13 as well. So I worked at a florist from the age of 13 to support the family.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, just to support my mum and my dad and stuff like that as well. And, you know, but yeah, it's like, yeah, it was, I look back and I feel like I could have, with what I knew and the resources I had, I felt like I managed the situation as well as I could have.
Yeah.
But I do look at that girl and think, you know, I wish I felt more supported. That's, you know, I wish I felt more supported.
More understood
by teachers, more understood by my parents. They did the best they could with the resources they had, but there wasn't that understanding in those times about neurodiversity, or about different learning styles, or
do you think that's why you, as soon as you knew and then reflected and had the grief period, and clearly makes you emotional, I wanted to be the advocate to make sure that other people don't have this one size fits all, which I say a lot, just doesn't work, right? It doesn't catch me. You were getting into trouble. I can relate to that, but you're not a bad person.
No.
Look how much you're doing to try and help other people now,
Thank you.
which aligns us all, actually. But, clearly that was your journey. What can you do now in your capacity? What are you seeing that you're impacting in any way, change for the good with the work you're doing?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of things behind social media rather than on social media, but I am trying to use the platform from the show to do a lot more, advocacy. But behind the scenes for a couple of years, especially in the last few months, I've been tutoring. And I've been tutoring children specifically with neurodiversity or ADHD. Yeah, and ADHD and autism. So especially, children who have been taken out of the mainstream school and really, need that one-to-one support. That for me is a key passion. And I've been tutoring about 6 or 7 children.
Is that a voluntary thing?
It is for some, and for others not, depending on financial circumstances. Yeah.
And what's the tutoring? What does that look like? Because it sounds really exciting.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry.
Don't be surprised.
I don't really talk about it that much, to be honest.
Well,
but
you should.
Thank you. So yeah, it's basically one-to-one. So I will work with the parent, and I take a more holistic approach. And I'd say, look, the first session is very introductory. I just get to know the student. Build a relationship, I think for me is very important. And then later on, I start looking at their pain points when it comes to maths. So that's my background.
Is that your bent?
Yeah, that's my background. Yeah, so I studied that at university. So I love to, especially like children, to just break that glass ceiling. Yeah, particular passion for that.
Let's talk about your day job.
Yeah.
Because that's a big job, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a big job for a lady with ADHD.
Yeah.
And you raised the glass ceiling. You talked about it, but you've burst through that, haven't you?
Thank you.
And if we look at traditional perspectives of a glass ceiling, that's going to prevent a woman getting to a position of influence and power in an organisation. Bang, you've gone through that.
Thank you.
Let's put another glass ceiling in the way for somebody who's not understood, doesn't understand herself, and society doesn't understand because of neurodiversity. Smash that one.
Thank you.
Then you're a woman of colour, and that comes with challenges as well. You battered that one.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you got to this job? What is the job that you do, your main job, and how have you got there? Because that's incredible.
Yeah, so I work in marketing, and I'm a marketing leader. I work for a company called Health, and really essentially it's about, the organisation. What we do is we help connect health leaders across Europe, the US, and we have a whole health community as well. And the point of it is to leverage technology in the health. It's creating a system where we can bring thought leaders together, talk about problems. How can we use technology to really drive solutions in the health industry? So yeah, that's really the key.
And what was your journey from mathematics?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no immediate, to me, correlation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I flitter between interests. That's one thing about me. But I think I grew a passion for maths through a maths teacher who I felt really understood me. So she really took the time to, teach me after school. I remember really, really hitting a wall with maths up until year 8. And she would say to me, Nick, you can come, we can do some trouble lessons together. And so I did that. And because of her support, it just clicked something, and it made me feel like I could believe. And then I started putting my all into maths and really enjoying it.
Can I elaborate on that? Because I really struggled with maths.
Yeah.
Because I now know I've got ADHD, and I would say a lot of people with ADHD do struggle with maths. So I don't want to break your flow, but I would love to know if there's anything there that the teacher did that you can actually articulate, and what that connection was. Yeah,
I think it was breaking things down in a way that felt very simple. So for example, it was like, if we were to look at X, the concept of X plus 2x, right? she would say, group apples together, 2 apples together.
She made it visual.
She made it visual. That's it. You better articulate
No,
it. Yeah.
well, I'm envisaging it now as you talk about it.
Yeah, she would say, group 2 apples together and group 1 orange. Can you bring an orange and an apple together? So no, it has to be 1x, 2y, for example, because you couldn't bring them, you couldn't fuse them together. But if you had 3 apples and 1 apple, you could bring it and it's 4 apples, because you could group like terms. And then with that logic, I just followed, because once something with ADHD, it clicks, you can just run with that logic. And she always told me with maths that the logic will remain the same. If you can understand the foundations, you just build on that foundation. And when she said that, it literally just made everything. So I just made sure I nailed the foundations, and then everything was just like, I remember in mechanics, I got 95%. And that was, I just don't even know how I did it, because I never studied physics or anything like that. And it was purely just building on the principles of math. So
sure, that tells you, what tells us, that with the right teaching,
Well,
because it's not even like Nick was told that you had ADHD at that point.
No.
It feels like the teacher probably had worked that out.
well, that was
teaching in
I was
way.
just going to go. So when you said the visual learning, that turned you. I actually think there was a step before there, if we can be bold enough to say that. I'm presuming that school was hard for you to get invested in.
Yeah.
And there's the kind of disaffection, low self-esteem, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm not doing so well, and this is hard, and I'm not feeling wonderful about myself. And then somebody shows interest in you professionally and appropriately, so that changes the dynamic. And Bob Brooks, a psychologist we work with from North America, he says it's the significant adult that changes a child's trajectory.
Wow.
And there's your, what was her name?
Miss Anu.
Yeah,
she's watching. Right? Yeah, she's great.
That significant adult then took you. So we're starting to feel, someone cares, and that's a change in dynamic. So there's a little bit for any person with ADHD. That's a change, and if that's done in a way that you can buy into, not resent, and which clearly
someone shows an interest in you.
Yeah,
it's people who've got stories where they've been believed in when they haven't felt that anyone else has.
It's a game changer.
It is.
Yeah.
I interrupted your flow with the maths because Phil asked a good question from maths. I'm so glad you said that.
Oh,
that is, I think, powerful for a lot of people to hear and listen to. But from the maths to ultimately being in kind of marketing and nothing to do with maths, what was the rest of that journey? So
with marketing, it's quite mathematical actually, because the principles. So again, it's like, sorry, again, it's just my brain. It's their core principles of marketing that can then translate, right? So if you like maths, if you know the core principles, people, X, Y, Z, the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps. I
was going to say, we're not still on the
we're still on the board. No, but those are the core. And then, the strategies to segment, to target, etc.
It's formulaic.
It's formulaic. So I just literally used that principle, brought it to marketing, and then just scaled. And now you can report on everything. So with data, you go on Instagram, you can say, okay, this post had X amount of likes compared to that one. You can see the engagement rate, and then use the maths to
SEO and pay-per-click and all of the algorithmic approach.
That's it.
Right. Okay. So I get that now.
That's it.
Okay. So let's fast forwards from school. We briefly touched on university, but there was a family trauma there, and we'll move past that. Well, rightly. The program, there might be a little bit of ADHD impulsivity and putting yourself forwards for that, right?
I mean, it was literally like, why not?
Yeah.
Without thinking about the consequences, I literally didn't even think, I could be married at the end of this. I just kind of went with it, you go with the feeling and the.
Was that very clear as you went into it? This is what we're going to do. We're going to put you in this pressure kettle, we're going to put you in this environment. Did they make that clear to you?
On the last week, before I actually signed the actual contract on the last week to be like, yes, I will do this, contribute to the show. So I had a chat with the contributing producer. She said, this, you're not allowed, you have to, if you get engaged, you have to attend the wedding day. And it was a lot, but I guess because of my inattentive ADHD, I wasn't even absorbing the severe
significance. Yeah.
So yeah, why not? But I didn't even read the contract. This is how bad it really was. Like, so my husband recently said, oh, if you say, you can't even say you're on the show once you've gotten married, you have to wait a year until the show's out. So I was about to say things but he said it was in the contract. I hadn't even read it to even know. So thank God for him. But yeah,
I've got to pursue something here, which is completely off topic.
Yeah.
So you've got married.
Yeah.
You brought a new bloke into your life, but you can't talk about it for a year.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, with someone like me, it's a bit hard. No, it was really
hard for anyone.
It was hard.
Hello, Mum. This is a man I've not married.
No. So any people who came to the wedding day could know. My mum and my immediate family attended.
What a construct.
Yeah. Only I had 10 guests, and I think Ben had 10 as well.
So you've gone on this program. I think we've ironed out that there was some impulsivity in there. You've said yes.
Yeah.
You've got a contract that says you're going to change every part of your life now if this goes ahead. And you've gone, what contract? Not read it. You've met and married a new man in your life in a very different set of circumstances. Who says it won't work? It's clearly working. Yeah, you've done that. And then you've got to keep your mouth shut about it for 12 months. And he's now telling you in the contract, the level of detail, you should know this.
Yes, I should know
And in this process of the year, as I'm piecing together this incredibly complex timeline, but very interesting and exciting, you've gone and got an assessment and a diagnosis of ADHD.
Which probably made a lot of sense.
No shit, Sherlock, Wow. I don't think in all of the interviews we've had, I don't think I've seen anything and witnessed anything that's got that trajectory. We talk about, don't we? We talk about hyperactivity, impulsivity. Here's the living embodiment of that. Now, so let me ask a question about Ben.
Yeah.
So he's fallen in love with you.
Yeah.
You could say despite the scattiness and what have you, but that's brought something that he's adhered to, hasn't it? Frustration at times, but he's obviously fallen for that. Now you don't have that. You're a different person because you've got a greater awareness about yourself, and you're now talking about all of that scattiness, whereas before you wouldn't be talking about it in the same way.
No, yeah.
So what difference does that make for Ben?
I mean, I can talk about it with awareness of it. That doesn't necessarily mean I've changed, So I guess, just realistically, like there are times where he's so patient. He's very, very patient, I'll say that. But at times it's frustrating, sometimes, like he'll, be at the junction of something and he's making a quick turn or something. He'll be like, Nick, just 1 second, let me focus here. And then I'll forget within 5 minutes, he said he just needs some time to focus. And I'll be like, oh, babe, look. And, and I just completely forget that he would just say that. Or, sometimes we can be talking and he's saying something that's really important to him and I'll just interrupt. I'll just be like, oh my God, because I want to contribute or add to what he's saying. To me, that feels like I'm building a connection, but it may not necessarily translate to that. So then I need to apologize and then we just start again and we start the conversation. But he is so patient, very understanding of everything. He can laugh about it as well. Yeah. We laugh about it.
The word of understanding is key. And the question you ask is like, actually, the amount of awareness you raise from conversations like this is as much for the person to understand themselves as any partner, parents, kids, if it's an adult diagnosis.
Let's change tack for a second, go down a different angle. To influence change and raise awareness of ADHD, which the platform that you've adopted for yourself, which is applaudable. There's a much needed black platform and very much underrepresented in the community of people who seek help for mental health generally, and in particular ADHD, is the black community.
Yeah.
How have you found being a black lady with ADHD? Because there ain't that many of you.
No. So it's so interesting because as soon as I shared my story about my diagnosis on Instagram and TikTok, the amount of messages I had from women who look like me were just, oh my goodness, a lot. Because people were saying they feel they may have ADHD, but they haven't been diagnosed. They're not sure. And there was a lady who was telling me about the fact that, it's like culturally, like because of her family from Africa, but they live in the UK. She's second generation. She's just afraid of what that might bring in terms of culture. So yeah, it's a lot. I feel privileged because there's still, I think there is an opportunity to really kind of carve out, because how I kind of go about, speaking about ADHD may inspire others to get a diagnosis themselves, and also build their self-esteem around their mental health. So I think there is an opportunity there to be a light in that.
There's no scientific scenario behind that, surely, because obviously that's what you said.
No, it's cultural.
So is it based on the fact that there's already been, that then mean you don't want to almost have another challenge to overcome? Am I picking up on that?
There's many dimensions to a social construct of healthcare in the UK and America. And a lot of the work I've been watching and following and involved on the peripheral edges in America is that the Black population is underrepresented in healthcare. So, as I said before, a female who's Black with ADHD, you've either got harder challenges, a great opportunity, depending what optics we want to put in it. Have you found any particular barriers?
So I'm going to tell you this. Someone in my family immediately responded to my story when I posted the story and said, you shouldn't be talking about ADHD. You shouldn't be talking about it because you don't want to be labeled as someone who has a problem. That was when I knew that there were certain cultural, stigmas that add to it, the weight of it. And I then started to think, well, if this is my experience, how many others like me would have these kind of stigmas as well?
And therefore, if we embrace that and push it to the forefront of what we're doing, we can help other people understand that you can take a step forwards and be brave and be supported.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when you look back, I'm going to ask you a very honest question. Do you feel a sense of shame, like your family member would say?
I think there was one point where I cared so much about what people thought of me. I mean, when it's natural for everyone to have some care, of what people think. But, especially my early adult life, I cared to the point where it was almost like, people pleasing, and denying oneself. But now I care less about what people think. I mean, I do care about what my close knit of people, like my tribe, think, but no. So I don't actually care that much.
What was the catalyst?
I was going to say, what's changed you?
That's the power of sharing. It's someone that's locked up, masking, people pleasing, and we've all been there, right? And there are people there right now. What was that? What was the catalyst that you said, I don't care anymore?
I think this sounds a lot, but after my first marriage failed, I quickly realized people don't really care. They care. I mean, this is just, they care superficially. Oh, what are you up to now? They want to just keep up to date. But when you're in the real thick of it, you only have a few people who come to you and say, but really most people are just so absorbed with what they're going through that, I mean, it wasn't until later on that I really realized that people don't care. I mean, to be fair, I didn't really announce it to the world, to my relatives or loads of friends that I got divorced because COVID happened and, but I just realized people don't care as much as you think they do. So
it's managing the voices in your head a lot of the time. That's something I've had to learn to live with. And that's probably part of my grief bit, is I've stopped myself from doing things or not wanted to do something because I am worried about other people will think, and it's cost me an opportunity. It's countless times. And I think that's the power and the value of sharing this. You decided that I'm not going to compromise myself.
No.
And now you're flourishing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, trying.
So what's the platform next step? If I'm a young woman, black or white, but let's go with black for a second because of that underrepresentation. And here's an opportunity to challenge that underrepresentation, which if we don't exploit that challenge, if we don't challenge the challenge, we're going to fail. What's the message to a young black woman who's hearing your story and thinking, that resonates with me? What's the best advice?
The best advice is honestly, like, live in a way that you can look at yourself in the mirror and be at peace with who you are, you know? No one needs to really understand you. Like, I mean, validate yourself, you know, and try really hard to validate yourself and, you know, to seek it elsewhere, you know. So even if that means getting that diagnosis, that will give you a sense of validation of what everything you've been through in the past. And that diagnosis is for you. It's not for anyone else. It's for you. Yeah. And if you do have ADHD and you're navigating it, then take actions that you feel good about, I'd say. So I love yoga. I do yoga a lot. It's helped me so much with grounding, breath work, because especially when I'm highly anxious, my ADHD is like tenfold, my symptoms.
So these things you've done since diagnosis?
Yeah.
You went looking for kind of almost coping mechanisms and...
So I did yoga after my first marriage breakdown. But I started doing a lot more inner child healing and inner child meditation, because have you read Gabor Mate's?
Gabor Mate.
Yeah, Gabor Mate,
yeah.
Yes.
He's trauma, isn't he?
Yes, his book is incredible, and it's all about parenting yourself, and it's actually helped me so much with ADHD symptoms from a holistic perspective. So yeah, I think it's been brilliant.
One last area to quickly just go through. You're a delight to talk to about this, an absolute delight. But if I can, I'm just picking up, despite the success, despite everything you've been through, a late diagnosis that we're talking recent times with, where's your self-esteem?
It's so much better than it was. When you say where's your self-esteem, like what are we ranking against?
Compared to, so you're...
Where are you now?
Yeah.
Compared to where you were? And have you still got further to go?
I've always got further to go for sure. But I would say when that diagnosis came in, after going through the motions of grief and, you know, all of that, I feel so good about where I am right now. I feel like I can really stand my truth, and I've started learning about boundaries and holding myself accountable as well. It's been brilliant.
Do you know, twice in this interview, I asked that for a purpose.
Why?
Twice in this interview, you said, is this okay? Is this going okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely, you are a magnificent woman who stood up for yourself. You've got an awful lot to give. And if you've got any sort of inner chimp still bringing that down, you need to chuck that away, because I think working with you is a privilege. The recklessness that you've demonstrated, and yet here you are. Yeah, well, it is, isn't it?
It's so reckless,
to go and do what you've done, but you've come out of it not only with a partner that's advised you, supported you, and seen you through a diagnosis of something, and then is understanding how you go on that journey, which was a long journey. That journey's not over just because you got your diagnosis. So you're proving you're the living embodiment that the impulsivity of ADHD doesn't have to bring you down. Positive can come from it. Being black in a society that expects you to be white isn't a barrier. You can still come through it. And if you pick the right partner, you have the significant... Go right back to that school teacher. What was her name again?
Miss Ainu.
Miss Ainu. Go right back to there. That was your significant adult that changed the trajectory of your life. And I'd be saying to anybody watching this, find your significant adult, and you've found another one. In Ben. And you're going around that block again with a significant adult. Don't doubt yourself and what you can give. The inner chimp that's still left there. I'm no psychologist, but I'm a human that's looking at you thinking, bloody hell, you're impressive.
Oh.
So role model springs to mind. In a world where it's a bit muddled and it's misinformation, misrepresentation, TikTok being the number one kind of go-to for girls like my daughters that are trying to find their way and learn from people. You know, it's been a pleasure.
There's an
pleasure.
authenticity in you that is strong.
Thank you.
And it's not over glossy, it's not over forced, it's not over pushed. It's a demure authenticity, which I just want to say from my perspective, I really respect, and I really hope you achieve your mission of creating a platform. I really do. And I mean that with as much humility as I can bring to the conversation. You've made a big impact on me today, and I think you'll make a big impact on other people watching this programme.
100%, which is why we do it, right?
Yeah.
And massive thank you for making time to do it.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolute
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.